You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Hello, and welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Today we have an amazing guest, Kevin Halliday, who is multifaceted entrepreneur, and I will let him actually introduce himself so I don't forget anything. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you very much for having me on your podcast. This is actually pretty exciting because I know we talked a little bit earlier and what my multifaceted is as an entrepreneur. I do a podcast in health, wealth, mindset. I've owned multiple businesses throughout my whole life and been in family businesses. And the pitfalls in family businesses, because as young entrepreneurs getting into business, it's a very difficult, trying point. But as we're growing, I've had multiple business and grown them to be big business. COVID was a prime example about an entrepreneur being able to change the way and the narrative on creating new businesses in an economy that had just blown up. So health, wealth, mindset, losing weight, getting in shape, having cancer, I'm all about the change and making life better for humanity.
Okay, let's just break this down a bit. So you started off working for your family business, and as you said, that was not fun. So you started this construction type business, or what was it? Stairways, or what's your business?
Yeah. So what my business is called, it's called Spindle, Stairs, and Railings. So this is really interesting. As young entrepreneurs, and when people start up their business, are you an entrepreneur because you like the word, or are you an entrepreneur because it's actually in your heart, your blood, your soul, and who you really are? And you know what? Only you can decide how great you really are. So when I was younger, my parents had a business and it was called Spindle Factory. Great business. They did an absolutely amazing job and they're doing very good. But when you're young and you're getting into business, you think that this is the way it's run. I have ideas and solutions and whatever they are. I call it a bag of chips. It is what it is. But when you're in a family business, you have to understand that there's certain ways and certain protocols that have to be adhered to. So family values, what does that mean? So because we didn't see the same way, we separated. They were a good company, but I started it from scratch. And basically what had happened was I went away. They had fired me and said, "You're done. This isn't going to work." And I had to ask myself a true question, and all entrepreneurs and family businesses as young kids, and this is a while ago, was that, did I truly work as hard as I really could? Like inside. And only you can ask that question to yourself as a young entrepreneur. You're starting your own business. No one's watching you but yourself. And I said to myself, no, you know what? I worked really hard for that company and it was my family's business. You know what? I think I could do this. I'm going to go start my own. And I remember going out with a business card and I started up a company called Spindle, Stairs, and Railings. And what that is building staircases for the construction industry. So you'd have a circular staircase. And remember, I have never, ever installed a staircase before in my life. And even to this day, I still haven't installed one. Okay. And why? Because I hire great people. You hire the best and you let them be the great of what they are. Find out what your greatest gift is and exploit yourself. And what my gift was bringing young entrepreneurs, I'll say young craftsmen, because they weren't entrepreneurs. They were great tradespeople that knew how to do it, but they didn't know how to run business. But I actually knew how to motivate and inspire people to go to the next level and create the wow factor. So what I did is I would go to job sites and put my business card on the house and say, "Oh, your house has been measured," and do it, but I never installed. Then I'd go and buy the product, come back and then quote it, and then they would install it. I'd find someone to install it. And the whole idea was that I was going, well, this is easy, but I'd never installed. Then I started to think about, well, how can I make it bigger? Like, how do I get better people? Like, how do I tenfold it? How do I do this? The next thing I know, I started hiring people. But I made sure that they were not the same as me. They had to be different, because I was all about the passion and the motivation. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And I'm excited about it. And I was basically selling the wow factor, the dream. But you had to get the right people that are putting their boots to the ground and actually can do it. So you had to make sure that they were in place. I always say, I can run a hospital, but it doesn't mean I can do brain surgery.
Right.
So what I would do is bring the right people in place. So what had happened as I started to grow this Spindle Stairs and Railings company and hiring great people, I would hire accountants and I would hire the installers and I would hire everybody in that knew how to do it. We built staircases like on a box of 1 foot by 12 inches and said, if you can build one, I can sell 1,000 of them because that just means we can do it. All you need to do is have one idea and go through with it, and you can duplicate it. The process is simple in any business that we do, but you got to have the belief and hire the right people. We can never do it ourselves. So know your limitations, bring in the next person.
Right.
We grew to be Canada's top spindle company in Canada within 3 years. We're Canada's fastest growing company, top 50 profitable companies in Canada within the first 5 years. Like, it was incredible. And it wasn't because of me, because I knew how to install, but I knew how to bring great people into play and let them be great. Give them the tools and let them work.
Right.
And this goes back, and this is the coolest story ever. And I always love this. And we look back because our past dictates our future. And where we are now is going to be what's going to happen. So let's go back to when I first started this 25 years ago. I'm even going to go back to the internet days, AI. The name of the company when I first started was called Spindle Stairs and Railings. And why was it that name? And then people going, well, why is that? And I'm going, do you know what? The internet had just started. Okay. It was coming out and I was going, well, how do I get key name searches? And then what did that mean? And I mean, back in the day, porn was the highest basically rated on the internet because you type up anything, and porn would come in until that got regulated and it got proper. Then all of a sudden, Spindle, Stairs, Railings became key name searches. And we're the key name search basically all over North America for stairs, railings, and spindles, which was brilliant on my end of it. Thank you very much. I just have to say that.
Because it was just the words. I get it.
Yeah, and just the words. But because we saw and we look back and we can take back, because entrepreneurs and young people, and we get into the thick of it as growing a business, we don't look at what the future brings us. We seem to be playing in the todays and worrying about, oh, I got to get today versus sit back. Yes, we have problems. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's all that in a bag of chips. But sit back and ask ourselves, what does the future bring? What can we truly do with the product that I have? And remember, I'm in the railing business. It is not sexy. It's a staircase, and no one's going to go out and do an impulse buy and say, hey, I need a railing today and buy it. And it wasn't. So how did you have to make that sexy? So, and remember, I never installed a railing before over in my life either. But I also, what was interesting as I was going through, is I wrote a book, The Art of Spindle Stairs and Railings, and what does it take to go to the next level as installers? Recognizing that labor was going to be a problem, I created a school.
That's awesome.
And the idea of the school was that if I knew that the labor was going to be hard, and we knew that the contractors and subcontractors would never basically, unless you had a family that does railings, now I'm going to use this, or carpenters. We'll talk about carpenters. Your dad was a carpenter and your uncle was a carpenter, and carpenters worked together and they built houses. But as the internet was coming and new technology was coming into play and the IT, and they're saying schools were actually pushing kids away from the trade schools and saying, oh, come to university and learn this. And they're pulling away. So it was like they were looking at trades as a lesser place of being back then. They said, oh, you don't want to be in the trade schools. You don't want to do that. They don't make any money. Well, fast forward today, they're one of the highest paid. We're paying them $20,000 a month. Okay. These guys. And they're absolutely brilliant. They make great products. And that's where the trades come into play. But back then, they get pulled down and families would teach families how to do it. And then that's where I said, you know what, I'm going to create a school. And that's where, when we're dealing with the schools, we had to get all the competition. And I said, forget that. I'll do it myself because it's going to take too long. So we were able to create a school, create entrepreneurs to actually learn how to install our products, learn how to do that.
Okay, that's amazing because you built the company. You got to number of top in 5 years, I think you said. Was that it, in 3 years or 5 years? So it did have something to do with you because you were revolutionary. You didn't just say, I'm just going to sell the stairs, the spindles, and the railings. Also, you were smart to break down the keywords like that. So what I like, what I've always taught people is if you're going to have a business, name it something that people know exactly what you're doing. Okay. So I met a guy and he had a company called The Website Store. I said, that is the most brilliant name ever because, these web designers would call it all sorts of stuff. I said, The Website Store is the best title ever. We know exactly what you do. And he said, bingo. So you did that. You just said, this is what it is, 3 words. It's kind of like actually my podcast. It's business, wealth, impact on purpose, because it's not, the something life with Jean Amlor. It's just 3 words. Same thing, actually, same deal. I thought of that, like just 3 words. What is it? Okay, I love that. So let's fast forward a bit. You created this revolutionary model where you basically created a school so then you could find people and build it further. Awesome, because there was a gap there. And you're right, tradespeople make a ton of money, especially plumbers, people like that. Okay, so then what happened? You made a lot of money. Actually, you said you were one of the founding partners of EO and YPO. That's incredible. And then what happened? You fell into some sort of a rut and you put on a lot of weight and you had all sorts of health problems. Tell us about that and what happened after that.
Well, what was interesting, you're just asking about the founding members of EO. No, I've been a member of EO and YPO for 25 years. I'm like one of the founding members. Yeah. So being around there. But as I was growing and having EO and YPO part of my life, they've been a part of my business strategies from day one when doing that, because as the mentorship going. But what was interesting is that, yes, we were very successful, but where my weight was coming into play and then stuff like that, it was starting to eat more, drink more. And I drank every day. Like I would drink out. It was, I call it was attention relieving or goal achieving. So yeah, I'm a successful business. Yeah, my buddies. And we'd go out to the bars at like 3:00 in the afternoon and get a buzz on. And I'd go out and get a buzz on and we'd talk about the world's problems. Yeah, my company's successful. Yeah, I'm making money. And I'd pick up and I'd go on a jaunt to England for the weekend. Like it sounds great. Like, oh wow, you get to get on a plane, you get to go. Yeah, it was great. You're young, you're doing this. And you got to remember, I've been married for like 25 years. So, and there's a non-negotiable. So there's no cheating. There's no, you're not doing that kind of stuff, but you're going there and you're getting pissed off. Okay. But then all of a sudden putting on the weight, then all of a sudden you're doing this. And it became one of those things that you start getting bigger and bigger, but you don't know it. You don't know you're in jail until you break out. Then all of a sudden I started to get into the groove and I started to gain weight. And then next thing I know, I have sleep apnea. And I'm going, what the hell is sleep apnea? Now, a lot of people will get sleep apnea. And I was like 30 years old. I got sleep apnea. So you wear this mask and it's severe. And it's like, I'm Darth Vader. And here I am laying there and going, okay, well, I'm over. I guess I got sleep apnea. That's just the way of life. And I'm still drinking. Then all of a sudden, as I'm drinking, next thing kicks in, I get gout. Now, I don't know if anybody's ever had gout, and then gout, all of a sudden it's called the rich man's disease or the king's disease. And the purpose of that is too much red wine, too much beer, too much purina and protein. So then my toe would flame up, and that would happen a couple times. And then it became that I was on constant pills, medication. Like every day I had to take a pill just to control my gout levels because they're over 600, whatever that meant, 600, whatever. There's a thing for me measuring your acidic levels. So you keep going. And do I really feel comfortable and happy with myself as I'm growing? Yeah, I'm successful. I got money. But yes, I'm doing this. I'm creating different things all over the place, and it's fun. But then all of a sudden, it came to the point: did I truly love myself? And here I am putting this weight on, and now I've got a couple kids, and they're great kids and stuff. But then all of a sudden, I'm drinking every day, and I would drink every day. I would never drink during the day. I would drink at 3:00 and then have a buzz on. And the thing is, then I'd be in bed at 8:00, and that was every single day. Now, are you an alcoholic? Sure. Are you not an alcoholic? Sure. It's just a storytelling that I told myself, oh yeah, I'm with my buddies and here it is. And this is what I'm going to do. You know what? I'm working all the time. No, that's not true. It really isn't, because time management, who we are and what we stand for as an entrepreneur, we can make time.
Mm.
You don't start a business and say, oh, I got to work my way. You know what? It's got to be so hard. It's going to be this and this.
Mm.
Oh, no. You decide how hard you're going to work and where you put your efforts and your energies.
Mm.
Sure enough, I put it into drinking.
Mm.
So here I am, 240 pounds. And I remember, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, I got gout. And then this is even better. Then I get cancer. Now, the greatest thing about cancer is I remember I was at an event. It was a YPO event, and I'm sitting there, and I'm at an event, and we're having beers and drinking. I'm at a YPO event, and I'm thinking I go to the bathroom and I start peeing blood.
Oh no.
I'm peeing red. And I'm going, what is that? I'm peeing red. And now, if you're peeing red, that's probably a good indication you should probably get checked.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, okay, well, that's weird. Maybe I have an infection or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, and it's just there. I went to the hospital, and they're saying, oh, it's kind of weird. You got like some kind of chlorine in your system or something like that. And I'm going, chlorine or some kind of chemical in there, and I'm thinking, would that have been from me drinking draft beer from the pipes, and they probably cleaned the pipes out of used, I don't know, antifreeze.
Chlorine,
That's what it was,
yes.
antifreeze. And then I'm going, oh, well, maybe that's it.
Okay.
But what was interesting is that at that point, here I am, I've got gout, I'm overweight, sleep apnea. Now I get bladder cancer. Okay. I go to the doctor, and he goes, yeah, you're going to come in 3 months later. So they stick a thing in your unit. Okay. And they go in there, and then they find the bladder, and then they go in and they come out, and then they chemo wash you. It's if you can basically detect it early, if you're seeing it right away, get it checked. It's the fastest and most curable disease. But as guys, what happens is we get too wrapped up on don't touch this. Oh no, don't. No, you get it done. It was easy.
Right.
And I got it. It was done. It was in. But here I got all this stuff, and I'm going, oh my gosh, what's going on? And it came to the point. Here's my businesses. Things are being successful, but here I am. I'm not going to be able to enjoy my life on anything that I'm going to do. And my son said to me one day, and I'm at a football, and I sponsor a lot of teams. I had arenas named after me as well. Spindle Stairs and Railings Arena in Calgary, and then any football like the Calgary Stampeders, so CFL team, and then they have their like bantams and like the small peewees. We would sponsor and make sure that everybody, no kids ever went without equipment or anything. So we sponsored that and made sure. And my son was in football, and I remember going to his football practice, and here I am. And he's football. And I said to my son, I said, you know what? You got to work harder. You know what? You're not putting the effort in. You know what? I'm coming to your practices every day. I'm working hard. I'm all that in a bag of chips. Your dad does this and that. And then you're not working very hard. And my son looks at me, he says, Dad, why don't you try it? I said, you know what? I will. I'm going to try it. You know what? I'll do it. You know what? I'm going to do it one step better, Braden. You know what? I'm going to get a trainer. And we'll get the trainer, and I'll do what you're doing. Okay? Piece of cake. He says, okay, Dad, well, let's do it. I got this trainer, and Anton was his name. And I remember this because I actually phoned Anton up out of the blue, because if you ever want to be grateful for somebody and you feel that you should be grateful, phone them immediately and tell them you're grateful. Thank you very much. And Anton, I actually phoned him to tell him that, because that day that my son said that, I asked this Anton gentleman, and I said, Anton, can you train us? He says, yeah. I said, I want to show my son what good a shape I'm in. Okay. Within 13 seconds, I was in no shape at all. I realized at that particular point, I was living precariously through my son and saying, do all this and this. And it truly wasn't about him. It was about me. And I looked at him and I went, oh, Braden, I am so sorry. I can't believe here I am. And I talk about having money, being an entrepreneur. This is what it takes to be this. You know, you got to dig down deep, and you got to be this. But when it really comes down to it as an entrepreneur, we sometimes forget about our basics, humanity, and who we really are. And then all of a sudden, here I am. Here's my kid, and I was like, ugh. So at that particular point, I said, I got to make a change. I don't know what it is or where it is, and I'm still drinking. Don't kid yourself. I'm still drinking. Oh, I'll just cut back a bit. And that's just the story I'm telling myself. Okay, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. I'm 30 something. I'm 40 something, whatever. I can make this happen. This is easy. I can do it. But it took a while after that, because then I had to realize one day was that, you know what, I got to truly love myself about
Mm.
who I am and where I am today.
Mm.
And I remember quitting drinking. It was on November 25th. I just turned 50 and still successful. Never mind the COVID stuff.
Mm.
That comes a little bit into play here as well. Is that all of a sudden I stopped drinking, and I said, and it wasn't that I was an alcoholic. Of course I was.
Mm.
Okay. But the point of the matter is, I made the commitment at that particular time and that particular moment, right then and there, that I quit drinking now.
Mm.
Over,
Done.
done. Ever since that day, I never had a drink.
Wow.
And the mindset that actually had to click in, it wasn't about change happens when you're ready for change. Of course, you have to be ready for it, but
Mm-hmm.
change happens in an instant. Once you decide and
Mm-hmm.
it's a non-negotiable,
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden life changes. Now the
Yeah.
crazy stuff happened after that. Every time that when I quit drinking, I never said, "Oh, I quit drinking. I'm never going to drink for the rest of my life."
Mm-hmm.
I just said, "I'm not drinking today.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the tomorrow is going to look like, but I'm going to make sure that every day that I do today is going to be the first day of the rest of my life."
Oh, that's so funny you said that because years ago, I'm just going to cut in because I just got goosebumps. Years ago, right after 9/11, I was in New York working for Wall Street. I was a top executive recruiter, and 9/11 happened. And we all, I mean, with recruiting, we all lost our jobs. And it was sort of like COVID in a way. But, in New York, it was worse because we were in New York. And I remember I thought, you know what? I'm going to start my life over again. I'm going to actually, and I did it. I told my friends, I'm actually going to start my life over again. I'm going to forget all the trauma or pain or anything, and I'm going to pretend that I'm just starting now. And actually, I would sustain this. And everything was different when I looked at it. So it sounds like you were sort of doing that like reset of just now we're fresh, we're starting off. Is that kind of what you did? Like day one, everything is fresh. Did you see things differently when you did that?
It was it's like a runner's block. And what was interesting, yes, I did, but people don't give themselves enough credit. You remember they talk about, okay, a habit's 30 days or whatever we're going to say. But what's really interesting, once you do the first day and you decide it's a non-negotiable,
Mm-hmm.
and you're right, did it change? But where it happened was 30, 60, 90
Mm,
days. Then all of a sudden it was like, whoa, wait a second. If I did that, what would happen if I did this? So it's one of those questions you'd ask yourself, what is the one little thing that you did 5 years ago, one little small
mm,
thing that what you did changed the rest of your life for today? So
mhm,
that day that I quit drinking, okay, and you said, start your life over.
mhm,
Once I hit that point, and it took about 6 months because
mhm,
basically the alcohol in your system, your blood, your hairs, your things, and it's just your whole body's having a transformation,
mhm,
okay, internally, because
mm,
now it's you're getting rid of something. Now the interesting part about it is that alcohol and drinking takes up a lot of time. A lot of people
mm,
say, "Oh, it's easy to quit," or
mhm,
it's not. I say that it's easy to quit. That's
mhm,
me saying that. But here's the difference: was that you had to replace it.
mm.
What was the replacement? I drank between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock.
That's 3 hours.
Yeah, and
That's a
that's
lot of
3 hours.
time. Yeah.
Oh, and your buddies. Now, I had to give up all your buddies, my buddies. I call them my basement buddies and my
Mhm,
balcony buddies. My basement
mm,
buddies say, hey, here's the guys that are saying, okay, here, this is what high school was like. We did this, we're all that in a
mhm,
bag of chips. Meaning, then our balcony is the guys that are taking you to the next level. And that's where my EO, YPO.
elevating. Yes.
Correct.
Mm,
And putting yourself into a group of people that truly elevate you to the next level.
yes.
And unfortunately, you have to get, and trust me, I loved my friends and they're
Mhm,
great people, like
mhm.
my basement, and I call them basement people. But I would never hang out with them. Would
Mhm,
I drinks with them? 100%.
mm,
Would I go for coffee? I'd love to have gone for coffee with them, but they
mm,
would never do that. That's
mm.
not who they are. And
Because
that's
they were your
okay.
drinking buddies. That was the context.
And that's okay.
Mm,
And people say, oh, no, it's not okay. No, but it is okay.
mhm,
But you have to get rid of them. Once
mhm.
your friends are gone, and then you have to have what we call as non-negotiables. This is a
Yes.
non-negotiable. You'll never go there.
Mhm,
That level. Once
mm,
I realized that,
mhm,
the door opened. Then all of
mm.
a sudden, I started to meet people. And by the way, when you're drinking, you have tons of friends. When you stop drinking, you have no friends. Okay, it becomes who's really standing behind you
Mm,
and catapulting and bringing you to that level because you have to be very strong.
mm,
So during that time, the 3-hour window that I'm talking, I had to replace it with something. Something had to replace it. Guess what that was?
Fitness.
Bingo.
Yes.
And when that comes into play, and I didn't know anything about fitness. I kind of didn't know anything about it. It was kind of, okay, I'm dabbling in it. I mean, okay, well, this is what the gym, what's that look like? But at least I'm there.
Yes.
And that's all it took, was to put the mindset, I'm here. That's the first step. How I make changes, I don't know. We'll figure that out as we go. But at least I know I can pull that away, and I'm
Right.
not drinking. And I got to meet some really fascinating people in the world. Like, all of a sudden, when you start going into a path of no drinking, your doors open up into a path of no drinking. You start to see people in a different light. You don't go out with people that are drinking anymore. Not that it's good or bad, but now you got to actually understand that you won't stay with anybody that has a conversation that has that it repeats itself twice.
Because you have sobriety now, and they're clear-minded. Yes.
But and the greatest gift of all, and people ask, what's the key to success? What's the key to being the greatest person that you ever be? How do you become the most interesting man in the world? And everybody talks about it, social media, blah, 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 all the storytelling. It's one thing. Love yourself. Be true to yourself, that nobody else knows but you, that only you can decide where you're going to go. And that is the greatest gift that you have for yourself. And then once you decide that, and you're living today as being present for today, and knowing that I'm saying that I can do this and I can do that. So here I am. Now I can do this. And all of a sudden I saw this girl competing on bodybuilding on TV. And one of my friends called me and I said, here I am, overweight, 240 pounds. The drinking, this is relatively just had stopped. And I said, what would happen if I took my body? I'm very motivated, and said, okay, well, give me the time of day that if I said, I'm going to give myself 1 year, and I'm going to give myself, in my head, 1 year, I'm going to work so hard, but not hard on to make money. Okay. I'm going to pull that away. I'm making money. Sure, I can make more. I can buy companies or do this. But what would happen if I truly looked at myself internally and said, what could I do with my mind, my health, my wealth, and mindset, and truly sculpture a life that I want to live in my head? Okay. So what does that mean to truly be disciplined, truly be motivated, to truly be passionate, to truly have a mindset of unstoppability? And what had happened is that I said to myself, I said, okay, if I'm going to try this, what's the hardest thing that you can put your mind through? And David Goggins is a great example of this guy. And
yes, I've actually met him briefly. Yes.
yes. And when you start thinking about this stuff, and then what was cool is when I started to look at this, all of a sudden the doors started to open. Then all of a sudden it was like, wait a second. I saw this girl do it, and I said, you know what? I want to compete in a professional bodybuilding competition worldwide. I don't want to just compete in it. I want to be in the world stage on it. And what does it truly take to actually have the mindset? Because it's not about working out. It really isn't.
No, it's not. It's
It's
about
about
mindset.
diet.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's diet, your food, your body changes, the transformation of who you are inside, and everything. Sure enough, I phoned her up, the girl, and her name was Karen. I said, Karen, I saw you on TV there, and I knew you were a big girl, but I never saw you as a bodybuilder. I said, how did you do that? Is that even possible? And she goes, yeah, it's possible. And I said, will you train me? She says, well, no, actually, the best guy would be Leo King, and which is he's the president of WMBF, great guy in Canada. I said, you know what? What's the worst thing that can happen? I phoned him up that next day and I said, Leo, my name's Kevin Halliday. You don't know me, and you're probably going to think this is kind of weird. I want to compete. Remember, I'm overweight. I hadn't worked out in the gym on weights ever. I'm 50 years old. And I go, Leo, you know what? I want to work and I want to compete in a professional bodybuilding competition. Will you train me? He goes, yeah, of course I would. Of course he's going to say yes, because why not? Okay. But I said, no, I want to compete. Now, whatever it take from zero to hero, let's just go into it. And I'm sure everybody has their New Year's resolutions. They say, okay, we're going to work out. We're going to do all this. And what does it take? Well, here we are. So here I am, 56 years old. I've competed in 4 competitions in the world, worldwide, in the World National Bodybuilding Federation, or so WMBF Worlds as well. And I placed first, second in the amateurs and stuff like that. But the greatest thing about it is that I did it.
Yes.
And once I realized that, what was the next thing? Then all of a sudden, wait a sec, I could do this. I could do this. It
Mm-hmm.
opened up doors that people don't realize that once you start asking the question and get that guy off your shoulder, the one
Mm-hmm.
that's the imposter syndrome
Mm-hmm.
guy, get him off your shoulder. The rest is easy.
No, I agree. Now, I'm not a bodybuilder. I don't really want to be a bodybuilder, but just before January 1st last year, I was 58. And I said to myself, I'm going to hire a trainer and I'm going to get in the best physical shape of my life. Now, I might not be in the best physical shape in my life because I've been in pretty good shape, but I've been training for a year now, fitting it in. And I have more muscle than I've ever had in my life. Yeah. Now, I don't want to be a bodybuilder. However, you're correct. And I just thought, I don't care how old I am. My trainer trains professional pro foot. Okay, he happens to live where I live. And I met him and I said, he goes, yeah, no, I train this guy and this guy. And then he trains a lot of kids. And he said to me, he said, you are the hardest person that works with. You come, you do the work. It doesn't matter if you're tired. He said, sometimes you are. He said, but you come with a different mindset of just, I'm going to do my best. And he said, you come and you do your best every session. And I was thrilled because all I want to do is do my best. Right. So I think it's about doing your best, whatever that is in the moment. When you started, when you were 240 pounds is not where you are now, but you came in and you did your best. Right. And then you keep doing your best and you built on it. You had a different goal because I really don't want to do bodybuilding, not what I want to do. But I think that's amazing that you basically have proven on many levels in your life, because there's a theme here that when you decide you're going to do something, you do it better, like the whole spindle thing. So, and they've proven for people, yeah, you had your ups and downs. Sure, you're human. You started drinking, all of that. That happens, right? But you didn't do worse stuff. You didn't do drugs. I have colleagues that I've met who really fell far. This one Wall Street guy is a friend of mine now. He lost everything because of drugs. He had to dig himself out of that hole. He actually ended up in prison for a while. And he did it. He actually conquered heroin. So it really is. And I feel that the more I interview people, it really is the character of the person that you can even pull up that mindset. Does that make sense? Not everybody has access to that kind of willpower.
And you know what? And everyone says that they don't. And you're right. And you are 100% right. And we just talked about the most interesting person in the room. You just mentioned it's not about the most interesting person in the room. You just said where your trainer said you're the most motivated.
Mm,
The bottom line comes to, what do you bring to the table? What do you bring? And only you as an individual will understand how that internalizes, and then everybody else sees it. The
mm,
secret, the power of success, the power, once it's inside of you and like everybody sees it.
mm.
That's a non-negotiable for you that you
Yes.
would never ever fail. It's not even on your radar. And you're going, well, that was easy. Once you have it,
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I mean, when I first started working out, I was dying. I was like, this is because I've done a lot of different sports, but when you start doing weights and you haven't done weights and HIIT, and it's different. I walk a lot, I cycle, I swim. It's different exercise when you change the exercise. Does that make sense? It's not, I can cycle for hours. It's very easy for me. I can walk for hours. It's very easy. Swimming's pretty easy too for me. Those are different exercises. When you start doing the weights and the HIIT, I was like, I said, I'm so unfit. He said, no, you're not unfit. He says, it's just different sets. But you're right. What it is it's non-negotiable for me to turn up and waste my trainer's time because that's not respectful. And also, I care about energy, time, and input. Why would I do that? Why even pay somebody? And he said, you would be surprised how many people pay me and they just turn up and they think I'm going to do the work for them, which is a classic. So yeah, I'm not saying I'm amazing. I'm saying I think we have a similar mindset. I'm not the best. He's like, you're not the fittest person that I'm working with, but you're the one that tries the hardest. Because he said they just sort of like give up. So I'm doing it a year and I'm not giving up. And I will be in the best shape. I'm turning 60 this year. That's okay. I'll be in the best physical shape ever at the age of 60. I'm getting there. So this has been amazing. So you got through cancer. You don't have gout anymore. You're in perfect. I looked on your Instagram. You're completely ripped, drug free, no steroids. So you're really doing all that. Your businesses are succeeding. You're buying businesses. So what do you feel is something you could share with people? I mean, clearly you were from an entrepreneurial family, and let's just face it, you had some advantage, and you know that because your parents were hardworking. You had the mindset feeding you over and over. You did have an advantage. All right. Now, I had an advantage because my parents were very hardworking. They weren't entrepreneurs, but my dad was just very successful in several ways. Okay. We have an advantage because we have role models that care and are ethical. So, what would you say? What is your advice is not a good word. What's your philosophy or mindset for people that maybe don't have a good start or had a good role model? What's your belief? What can you share with people now where they can be the best? I don't want to say the best version of themselves because that sounds like in a box.
Hmm.
Where can they fly? Where can they find new meaning in life where meaning is purposeful and they love their lives and they're fulfilling and they have juicy impact. And I don't mean like, like cliche impact. I mean juicy life force. That's the word. What's your advice or feedback or philosophy on this?
Well, and you know what? That's a really good, good question, because I actually had to sit down and say, okay, who are you? What do you stand for? And then how do you change humanity to be the best that you possibly can be? And cliche it or whatever we want to do.
Mm.
And I had to really look back at it and think about it. So my son said to me the other day, and this wasn't very easy. He came up to me, he says, Dad, can I tell you something? And I said, okay, what is it? And he's doing well.
Mm.
And he goes, you know what, Dad? Out of anybody that I've ever met, and all my friends' dads and everything like that, I have the most respect for you.
Aw.
Okay. Not the fact that I want to be you, it's
Mm-hmm.
the fact that you lead by example. What you say is what you do.
Mm.
And I said to myself, I said, out of anything, it's not about legacy, because when I die, no one's going to
Mm-hmm.
remember me anyway. So does it really matter? Because if we go back 100 years, no one's going to remember who
Mm.
they are. And what's your impact that you do? And it's sure,
Mm-hmm.
we can all say whatever it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be. But what was really interesting in the question that you're asking is that when somebody asks you to do something or you want to do something, lead by example, just do it, because every single person is watching you.
Mm.
And only you inside truly know if you're working hard. And remember, if you don't inside that you're doing the best that you possibly can, then you know that there's 1,000 other people that are watching you that you don't know that are watching you. And I'll use
Mm.
the gym as an example. When you're on the treadmill and you go to the treadmill and you're on the treadmill, do you put your arms over top of the treadmill, slumped over, and you're working it? And you're working out, or
Mm-hmm.
do you stand up straight, look forward, and concentrate on what you're doing and be the person in the room that you're truly in presence with yourself?
Mm.
Once you become present with yourself, you become present with everybody else around you. And what's the takeaway that you would tell everybody what I would tell everybody else to do is make yourself present to where you are today. The
Mm.
future will come. Today is a present, and Eleanor Roosevelt said this.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest thing about it is being present, and then all of a sudden lead by example. Be the person you want people to view you as, and be that person. Keep
Mm.
the non negotiables to yourself, that this is a non negotiable. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. And
Mm.
I'm going to change me, which changes everyone, and everyone follows you. And the next thing you know, health, wealth, mindset follows you to be
Mm-hmm.
the biggest and the greatest individual that you possibly can be. But you have to be true to yourself. And
Mm.
that's the first step.
That is gold. And there is a saying, or it's known that the people that have the most influence are the ones that are the most present. It's true. And they're talking about people when they're present with you and they're not looking at their cell phones. The people, if you go into a room, the ones that have the most influence are the ones that are the most present in their energy, in their bodies. And that's very true. And what you're saying is about I was thinking when you were saying that's true, because that's a saying that people, that saying, right? People with the most influence, the most present. So listen,
Yeah.
Kevin, this has been incredible. I really have loved having you on the podcast. Is there anything else you'd like to say as parting words?
You know what? Thank you very much for having me on here, because it's one of those things. And when we talk about being present and building a podcast, building your speaking tour, building anything we do, we get to do something that's never been done before in the podcast industry, in the history of world right now. So when people are listening to this, we get to communicate with millions of people over here in the world right now instantly. Go back
Mm.
100 years ago, 10 years ago, it was all news. It was this.
Hmm.
The power of what we have right now and the gifts of being present, because you listening to me, because you have to truly listen to what I'm saying, vice versa. We get to open up new doors that no one else out there gets to see. And by other people asking greater questions, creating curiosity, we get to open those doors for them.
Mm.
And this is wonderful to be here. And I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank
Oh,
you.
no, thank you. So we're going to close with that. That's a mic drop. Thank you so much if you're listening. Thank you for supporting. And if you'd like to share, that would be great, or subscribe, or tell everybody about this wonderful episode. And we will see you on the next one. You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jean Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jean Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact.